Welcome to this video on engaging readers with metatext for thesis and research writers. Metatext are the signals and signposts that we include for readers in our writing. They are phrases and sentences where the writer talks to the reader to make the text more reader-friendly. Using metatext effectively can really help you to build a positive relationship with your reader. So although you as a writer are always focusing on ideas, you're also constructing the text for a reader. And we need to keep that in mind. And that's where we use metatext. Metatext is a range of language devices, phrases, and sentences that we use to engage our readers, to signal our attitudes, or to organize our texts. These signals are read by readers while they're reading the information and ideas as well. So metatext is all about reader awareness. It's the way we project ourselves in our texts and the way we communicate with our readers. And we often do this by guiding or directing our readers. The reader can't see when we are changing things or how we've organized things. So by putting in these signals and signposts, we show them. What I want to focus on in this video is organizational metatext, where we explain to our reader how we've organized our writing. These are just small sentences here or there, paragraphs, throughout the paper that really help to take the reader through the writing. I want to use this paper here as an example, and it might help if you could get a copy of the paper to look at where these things are happening in that original paper. So let's look at metatext in an overall paper or a chapter. And where we would find a lot of this would be in the introduction. So the introduction chapter or the introduction section. This is where we provide a preview, a roadmap of what's to come. So this is a good example of metatext. In this article, I provide a background. So there, the writer is talking to the reader. She's telling us, I'm providing a background on this. Then in the next section, later down, she says, the second section shifts gears and turns the reader's attention to the methodological tool of comparison. Here I aim to map out. So there she's talking directly to the reader. You don't have to do it as clearly as that, but you can see how she's having this conversation with the reader about how she's organized the paper. You don't have to use I either. Here's another example of metatext in a paper or an overall chapter, and this is where we outline our arguments, where we signal for the reader what the argument is. The overall argument I advance is, and then she expands on it, I'm suggesting this, and then she makes sense of it. Thus, my argument is in favor of. And you don't have to use the I again. You can say the argument made in this paper is, but she's actually telling the reader quite clearly what the argument is. Another way of using metatext in an overall paper or chapter is when we draw conclusions. This is where we'll find it quite often. And we do this by reviewing and highlighting main arguments and highlighting conclusions. So here the writer provides a summary of Connie's argument, and then she says, I take Connie's argument one step further and suggest. So she's very clear to the reader that exactly what she's doing. Here's a summary, and then I take it further. And then in her conclusion, she also summarizes, in this article, I have attempted to sketch out some of the problematics. Then she forwards her argument a bit more. So she's just reminding the reader, this is what I've tried to do in the article, and now I'm reminding you of my main arguments and my point. So the reader doesn't have to go back and read that section or go back to the beginning and figure out what the argument was. She's just gently reminding the reader as she goes along. So those were in the previous sections I was talking about overall papers or chapters. Now let's look at within sections of a paper or a chapter. You could have these very short preview sentences where you tell the reader what's to come in the section. And you could also have these summary sentences, which just provide reminders and highlight important information. So you're signaling to the reader, this is important. Remember, I said I would do this, I've done this now, and this is important. So these short sentences that begin a section and end a section. In this section, I intend to do whatever. And these just signal to your reader your thought processes and what you're doing, and help your reader work their way through that section. So here's an example. This is within a section in the paper where she said, to conclude this section, we find, so here she's providing a summary of just what she's been through. So she's explained it in detail, and now she's pulling out the important points. To conclude this section, and then she goes through, and then at the end, she links it back to her arguments. One way to reinvent the historical, I argue, is through transnational history, which I argue differs markedly from whatever. And then she highlights what's going to happen next. So she's provided some more metatext there as well. So all of this metatext is a way of being kind to your readers. You know, if you have a really difficult concept that you unpack, or a really dense section, then being kind to your reader means providing short summary sentences, and then just reminding your reader of the key things and the important conclusions. In a thesis, being kind to your readers would be about reminding your readers of the research problem, the purpose, and the questions. So they don't have to go back to the beginning to look for it. So, for example, in the methodology chapter, you might remind your reader of the purpose. In the literature review chapter, you might remind your reader of the knowledge gap. When it comes to your analysis, you might remind your reader of the research questions. So just these gentle reminders all the way through are really helpful for the reader. And the small summary and review statements, this is what I'm going to do, and then at the end, this is what I've done, and this is what's important. This is what I think you should take from this. And linking it all back to your argument can really help provide a coherence throughout your piece of writing. So think about ways to be kind to your reader in your writing. So the key points from this video are that metatexts are signals for your reader. They can really help your reader to navigate your text. In this video, we've focused on organizational signals, such as providing previews and reviews and linking to your arguments. If you want to read the original article that I've used the examples from, the reference is there. And those two blogs are very useful blogs on writing, academic writing, and I encourage you to go and visit those pages. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I hope you get to write metatext.